Hey, it's Dino from Spin Crypto. We have an exciting show today. We were lucky enough to get a hold of the guys from Verus, and Michael, the lead developer, decided to give us a little bit of his attention and time. The issue is that we spent a full 2 hours talking and discussing the Verus coin, and there's so much information that we cannot fit it into one video. And even as two videos, they'll be 1 hour each. So I broke them up into two videos, and there's a lot of information about the Verus project, and this is going to be part one. All right, part two, you will find the links down below so that when you're done with this, you can click on that and go to part two, or find it in the listing of videos. So it's a lot of information, a lot of good stuff, and if you're into Verus coin, you're going to enjoy it. Now, Verus is a new coin, and it's speculative. I don't even believe it's on an exchange. It's probably just over the counter at the moment for trading. And the only thing I can tell you is watch the video and see what you think. So let's get to it. Hey, it's Dino from Spin Crypto, and today we have a very special guest. We had the opportunity to get in touch with the folks at Verus Coin, and they were gracious enough to be able to allot some time in their busy schedules. They're out there coding and making a lot of things happening. We have Michael, who's going to be on the show today, and he's the lead developer for Verus. And he's going to be able to tell us a lot more. Now, I did a cursory review of Verus coin, and because you do your few minute walkthrough, you try to take a look at it, and initially I thought it was something that they had going on, but I wasn't super impressed. But I have a feeling Michael's going to change my mind, and maybe yours. So let's find out. And I believe we got Michael connected. Let's get my fat head out of the way here and put me down here. And let's see what we got. Michael, let's bring you right on. How you doing, Mike? I appreciate you taking a few minutes today to talk to us, to be able to help educate us a little bit more about the Verus project. I want to know everything about it, because in my pre-work and pre-setup to do the show, I found out a lot of things that kind of tickled my fancy, and I'm hoping you can elaborate on it and tell us a whole lot more stuff about the thing. First of all, introduce yourself, your first name, last name, and how you're connected to Verus, and how this all started off and how this works.
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the chance to talk about Verus, the Verus project, Verus Foundation, what we're doing. My name is Mike Toutonghi. As you said, I'm the lead dev for the project, and my background is technical for many years. I actually started in the early 80s in computers and developing operating system software, and was a technical fellow and vice president at Microsoft for a while as well. Helped start the .NET platform, and helped to start actually Microsoft's Java project, and also eHome and a few things like that. So that's my background. Most recently, I was CTO at Parallels, where we did a lot of provisioning systems for telcos and service providers for applications. And there is some connection actually for what we call public blockchains as a service, which is a key part of our vision. So I do want to thank you for having me on. That's our background. And how I got involved was I was actually doing work for a number of different customers, companies, and a lot of people started getting excited about using blockchain technologies, and I started looking into different blockchain technologies and what would be really the right technologies to bring together in creating a blockchain solution that I was asked to create. And actually, in that work, I came to the conclusion that there were much bigger opportunities to solve some of society's problems by building a system that I didn't see anyone building right now. And so, Verus Coin includes the zero knowledge proof privacy, which is right now, of course, operational and allows you to have completely private transactions. And we've also made it simple in the wallet to have completely private transactions with also completely private, permanent, and notarized messages back and forth between people as well. And we've developed some technologies for security, because what we're trying to do is put together a platform that will enable public blockchains as a service, the ability to automatically provision and create blockchains to be used for public applications. And because some of those public applications could be, very important infrastructure over time, in our opinion, we want to make sure that what we start with has absolutely rock solid security and protection against 51% attacks and these kinds of things. So we developed a few new technologies out of the gate to include in the initial mainnet launch of Verus, which happened on May 21st. What we included, we developed our own hybrid proof of stake and proof of work technology that allows both mining and staking of Verus coin. And the hash algorithm that we developed, we call it Verus hash. It's actually the fastest cryptographic hash algorithm in the world on CPUs. Our thinking was that if we could really solve the problem of enabling CPUs to stay relevant in mining of Verus coin as long as possible, then that would contribute to greater decentralization, and greater decentralization in our model would contribute to greater security. And so the effort was to create an algorithm that would really allow CPUs to be competitive and continue to mine, even at the point when great GPU devs are working to try and optimize GPU support. And we think we've achieved that. Right now, our network is measured in the terahashes, and that really is CPUs. That's all CPUs. There are some people working on GPU miners, but so far there isn't a finished one, and the optimized algorithms on the best GPUs are getting under about 140 megahash, and a really fast notebook can get about 160 megahash. So we think that we've done what it takes to make CPUs stay relevant for some time. That was an important part. And then the other side of it, the fact that we have a 50% proof of stake means if you have Verus, just having that Verus in a running wallet allows you to participate in validating blocks and earning block rewards on the Verus network, which, while we're talking right now, for the next few days are as high as they will ever be, again, for the rest of the history of the Verus coin network. So right now, people are mining and staking 96 coin block rewards. And because we have this 50% proof of work and 50% proof of stake working together, it ensures that we're much more resistant to a standard 51% attack by anyone. Really, the only way to effectively mount a 51% attack on the model that we have would be to have a large number of coins and a large amount of hash rate at the same time. And then we've gone even one step further than developing and releasing these new technologies and then this hybrid mining and staking technology. We developed Verus as what we call a friendly fork of Komodo, which means that we did develop our own technologies and put it into our code base. And we are going to be working with the Komodo team to make it easy for other people to leverage, the Verus hash technologies and the proof of stake technologies and others that we built over time. But we're also notarized with Komodo's delayed proof of work, which is another security layer. So we actually believe that we're not in a position to academically state that we are absolutely the most secure and 51% attack resistant chain there is, but it is quite possible, and we're certainly doing the research to determine if we've achieved that. And we certainly know that we have achieved a significant increase in security over the standard kind of a proof of work public blockchain. So all of that leads in. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to let you continue, but you bringing up so much great information, and I hope that as we go along, I can break those things down and you can elaborate on some of them. I'm sorry to break your chain of thought.
No. I'm actually, if you want to stop me at any time, I've been known to speak a little long. So if you want to stop me at any time and we can dive into details of something, that would be great. So the idea is that with public blockchains as a service, instead of just mining and staking for block rewards on, with the vision of what we're building and what we're working on, the miners and stakers who are mining and staking today for block rewards in the future will actually be able to participate in helping to provision. And this kind of goes back to the telco provisioning technologies that I worked on. Provision blockchains to be used by applications that can leverage smart contracts, which are available through the new smart contract technology from Komodo that can work cross-chain. And the first applications that we intend to develop using this technology relate to polls and elections. So these would be confidential, verifiable, and transparent polls and elections running on their own public blockchains as a service, completely auditable, but at the same time confidential in who voted for what, and done in a way that allows the poll or the vote to actually automatically establish and run on its own isolated blockchain, and then have all of the results and the data produced by that poll then notarized back into the main Verus blockchain. So yes, I've gone on a long rant there about what we're doing, from who I am to how I got involved, and then kind of led all the way into some of the first applications that we're working to build. So I'll go ahead and stop and let you dive in.
Not a problem. So like I was saying, there's a lot of information that you put on the table, so I'm gonna definitely ask you lots of questions. All right, so this starts off with, what exactly is Verus Coin in itself, or the Verus project itself? And I was trying to understand what exactly it was doing, and then I saw the voting system, and so I thought, all right, so these guys are making an electoral system. So from what I understand, what you're trying to explain is that you're basically, Verus is going to be an environment that allows for side chains and to have additional applications to run on the Verus environment, which provides things like notarization and protection against 51% attacks and other features. So the core product itself is more of a platform. Is that correct?
It's two things. It's a cryptocurrency and it's also a platform over time. So right now we have zero knowledge proof, private transactions. A lot of people think of it as a great privacy coin with a 50% proof of stake that allows you to hold the coin and earn money from holding the coin, as well as 50% proof of work, which allows you to mine the coin. It was a completely fair launch, so nobody owned a single Verus coin before the 15-minute notice on Bitcoin Talk forums for mining and availability of software. And then we had a slow start. We actually went through a period of about 2 months where coin rewards were time locked, and those time locked coin rewards will be released over the next 2 years. So we did everything possible to make sure that this was a fairly launched, decentralized coin. And everything you said is true. And I would add to it that yes, you can run, you will be able to run applications on their own automatically provisioned side chains. But unlike other systems that you might ask someone to create these side chains for you and hire a company to build a blockchain for you to enable, say, a poll, or go to a private company and say, can you please help us run our poll on blockchain? These are fully public blockchains provisioned in the same way that Bitcoin or Verus coin transactions are validated, and anyone with Verus will be able to provision, for example, a poll and have that poll automatically run and use software without any centralized entity, neither the Verus project people or anybody in the middle of that process. The decentralized mining and staking will actually handle the provisioning of services and infrastructure to enable that application to run. And so that's why we call it public blockchains as a service. So right now we're just a very, very secure hybrid proof of stake, proof of work, high-tech privacy coin that leverages technologies from Zcash and leverages technologies from Komodo to bring together the zero knowledge proof technologies with Komodo smart contract technologies, as well as sidechain capabilities. And then we're taking that to the next level, and we're enabling these sidechains to be automatically provisioned and paid for through the Verus ecosystem.
Okay, so one of the first, are you calling these apps, or are they snaps, are they dApps? These sidechain applications that you're going to add, and the first one being this electoral voting system, assuming that you guys are going to be creating that.
It's polling for many purposes, but it will also include, confidential, verifiable, and transparent voting as a scenario. So the we definitely would refer to them as dApps because they are definitely decentralized, fully decentralized applications. And when I say fully decentralized, I mean applications don't even have to depend on always using or sharing a centralized blockchain. So it's a little bit different than a little bit more than the standard dApp that people might be used to. It is a decentralized application, but it also can have the benefit of running on its own decentralized, isolated blockchain that is provisioned and run just for the purpose of that app. So let's take the poll app, for example. And this is something that it's in our vision paper. We're working on developing this. It's not on the main net yet, and we expect to have this capability. We don't want to talk about specific dates because we're working on getting the technology out as soon as possible, but we expect to have this capability certainly by next year. So the basic idea is that the app, you could call it polls, would be Verus DApp, but when it runs, each poll would automatically create its own isolated blockchain to run that poll. And so when people think of DApps today, they think of, an Ethereum application running on a shared Ethereum blockchain. We wouldn't have that problem. There's not like a congestion issue or these kinds of things. If you have a poll, then the poll can provision an auto chain or a public blockchain as a service automatically in order to run that poll. And then voters are actually the validators of that poll. So the voters, in fact, are the first level of security of the poll itself. So, one of the reasons that we think this is a really correct way to do things is that if you're dealing with a small vote in a community, a very small community, and they just want to find out who should be the next, leader of the lodge type thing, and you got 50 people, then you could actually do validation with just a few people running the poll itself. But if you wanted to do like a real election with, say, 1 million people or more, and you want to make sure that it's secure, allow the voters to actually secure that poll blockchain, and then really a 51% attack in a case like that is called winning the election.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands. So we have an environment, a platform. It's designed to be safe. It's designed to be secure, more so than others, because you're tapping into Komodo, you're tapping into the Z Classic, you're tapping into, and Komodo taps into Bitcoin. So these are chains that are all working along with each other. Now you'll have
definitely
applications.
But there's
and then
the Verus that's that 50% proof of work, proof of stake, and then the Verus hash. That's another key component of the security. So yes, everything you said, plus that technology that's unique to Verus as well.
Great. All right, so we got this platform. Now, not anybody can create an app and put it on this. You guys are going to create these apps as a service, AAAS, and you'll inject these things, and then folks from anywhere can then use these apps as a service to incorporate into their environments, knowing that it's safe and secure because it's running on the Verus platform. And as you go along, you'll create more applications and provide more services that people can use. Is that a fair way of expressing it?
Almost completely. So the one place where I would change that a bit is we're not, so this is a community coin, 100% fair launch. We're not trying to limit what people can do with this to only the things that we do. So right now, people can build applications that would leverage the Bitcoin technologies or the Zcash or the Komodo technologies that are available on the mainnet because it's a public blockchain. And Verus is really owned by the world, by the community. So what we're doing is we're developing technologies to add to what we've already developed that will enable us to build these polling applications. In our vision paper, we talk about the polling elections, and we talk also about identity, strong identity that respects privacy. And these, we believe, are important foundational applications. But when we enable public blockchains as a service on the mainnet that will allow us to build these applications, anyone will be able to also build applications using public blockchains as a service. And they will still be able to leverage the same kind of security and the same kind of power. And so even though we think that polls and elections and identity are these foundational decentralized applications, the public blockchains as a service can enable much, much more than that, including, it could be everything from exchanges to government or corporate applications. There are all sorts of opportunities for developing applications. These are just what we believe are the foundational applications, and where we've said we're going to really invest our time and energy to make these available to people, even if other people don't.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And yes, obviously it's a community coin, so there's no company behind this. It's everybody getting together, codes on GitHub, and you can put in your own upgrades, and the community will vote on it and then incorporate it into the environment. Okay, so this is good. So basically we have a system or a platform that's going to be significantly more bulletproof than what's out there currently. And so that's a pretty exciting concept, to have something that that's going to be reliable to the best of today's technology. And this is important. Now,
can I add one thing that we might want to touch on later as well? That
absolutely.
is, there's not a company behind it, and there's not a central organization behind it. But one thing that we did early on is some of the community members, including myself and some of the other developers, mined and staked our coins on behalf, or not our coins, but coins on behalf of a community foundation, the Verus Coin Foundation. And that was something that we recently announced. And so that foundation is actually intended to support the community in the development of technologies on the Verus blockchain to realize the Verus vision. And that foundation right now has somewhere over about 4 million fairly mined and staked coins. Many of them are time locked, and the complete intent of all of those coins is to go towards supporting realization of the Verus vision. So there is actually, it's not just, there's not a central controlling entity, but there is a foundation that has had resources, and it has an endowment of resources that will be used to support people in the community that contribute towards the vision, and really the effort to realize that vision.
All right. So that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the coins produce foundations so that there can be some kind of non-profit direction, or somebody that's kind of directing or controlling what the information and everything that's going on. And that's a really good step. That usually doesn't happen right off the bat. And I see how it's funded. It's self-funded based on the donations and the staking. So that with those staking and being taken place in the name of the foundation, it will become a self-supporting organization, theoretically, as it goes along.
Combination of pure law and an actual foundation that can help out. So that's the goal.
Perfect. And again, for all those that are watching, Mike can tell us a little bit more, but as far as the functions of what a foundation will do, why don't you enlighten us? What are the basic topics? Because this was one of my questions. I had saw information that the foundation was just started, and I was going to ask you about that. So since we're talking about it and we're on the topic, What are like some key bullet points, just real quick, that the foundation would be responsible for, or should I say, would take leadership roles in?
So really, the primary purpose of the foundation is to, manage the endowment for the foundation and to use that to help support the vision. So it's already been providing significant bounties for people who have contributed, even in the process of recently bringing up pools, because the network got up to some over 4 terahash with just solo mining, people on CPUs. And, in order to really enable, when we get to that point, it became somewhat difficult for people to mine on their regular PC and know that they were going to get any rewards, in the next week or in the next few weeks even. And so, so we worked to take Verus hash, the new algorithm, and get that into pools that people could run. And so the foundation actually provided bounties for people who really helped bring all that together. And it was amazing how quickly, those technologies came together, and we were able to, from the time that we really started focusing on it, we had 2 pools and then 2 more up within the first week. So, the foundation was really instrumental in enabling that and doing that really through supporting the community in doing that work and making those bounties available for that. The foundation also has, nodes and computers that it runs, but it's not. The foundation is really more of an entity that's intended to curate and manage its endowment with the sole purpose, the only purpose being realize the vision as described in the vision paper. And that means that, we think over time, those coins are generally going to all go to the community as the community helps realize that vision. But, our thinking is that is enough of an endowment that if we manage it properly, it can last for many, many years into the future and continue to support projects and efforts that lead to, improving the overall Verus blockchain system and realizing the vision as described. And at the point where we actually realize everything described in the vision paper, then it will continue in that same spirit, continue to define a future vision and work with the community to help support, define, and guide where Verus evolves.
Awesome. All right, I appreciate that, because that helps me understand, and it helps the audience understand what the function of a foundation is. Now, sorry about that. I had a knock on the door. You guys all know that I have a manufacturing facility, and they're running out of sandpaper. So, of course, I get bothered because they ran out of sandpaper, and it's a weekend, and we got to take care of it. So sorry about that, Mike. I appreciate it. I know we were talking about the foundation. I have so many more questions, and I know you only have so much time, so I'd like to move on with that. Obviously, a foundation is going to be good and help drive this as we go forward. But what I really wanted to get into is this part of this technology that you had talked about. You gave us a lot of good information in your startup, and I'd like to discuss some of that. Okay. First of all, being the Verus environment is currently part or set up using Komodo tool sets, and from what I understand, and so what I'd like to do is tell you what I thought I learned, and you can tell me if I learned it right or wrong. So
Okay.
Komodo obviously being a really good tool set to make other chains. So you guys took advantage of those tool sets and some of the functionality that those tool sets brings, such as the notarization, being able which allows it to back up onto the Bitcoin network, and other additional functions that it has. And so I was hoping you could tell me a little bit how it's connected to Komodo, and can the environment one day run on its own, and would you actually want to do that? Because if you did, you would probably lose some of the functionality that Komodo brings to you. So tell me a little bit about that, Mike.
Okay. So it is true that we started with the base Komodo tools, but what we did is we actually forked the code base. And in fact, JL777, who's lead developer for Komodo, has been an advisor on our project and has been super helpful, because we had a lot of technology enhancements that we wanted to make. And one choice would be we could look at another blockchain. We could fork that blockchain and we could develop things that way. But by taking advantage of the great work that Komodo has done, what we're really able to do is we can develop technologies, but we can still take advantage of, as you mentioned, Komodo notarization. It's something that maybe a lot of people aren't as aware of yet because it's just started to come out and they're just really starting to release documentation. But Komodo also has smart contract technology that I feel has significant advantages over some of the smart contract technologies that people are using today. And so we'll be leveraging the smart contract technology as well. And you asked about, could we be kind of independent? Well, in fact, the Komodo vision, I don't want to speak for Komodo, but I think I understand this enough to say the Komodo vision is really a world of independent blockchains that work together through cross-chain communication and contracts. And that's one of the benefits of their smart contract system is it has the concept of cross-chain contracts at its core. And so every Komodo asset chain or us as an enhanced Komodo blockchain is actually, by default, it's a standalone chain. But it has the capability of being notarized into Komodo, which then gets notarized into the Bitcoin blockchain. This is a service that the Komodo platform enables. And you also get that great benefit of being able to leverage the technology that the Komodo developers continue to create related to the cross-chain applications, cross-chain smart contracts, this enhanced security technologies. And so we actually are a standalone system of our own. And in fact, when we first released, I think for the first 3 or 4 weeks, it took about 3 or 4 weeks for the notarization to start going. But because we have this 50% proof of work, 50% proof of stake, and the Verus hash technologies, we have a lot more resistance to typical attacks, even without the Komodo notarization. So the idea that we can take this highly secure technology that is the Verus blockchain itself, and then further add Komodo notarization and take advantage of the Komodo technologies for smart contracts and cross-chain communications gives us really the best of all worlds. I mean, we have the ability to we think of ourselves as an independent blockchain project, and we can develop our own technologies independently, but we maintain compatibility with the technologies, and we continue to bring in technologies that Komodo develops to underpin what we're building in Verus. So that's really one of the benefits of Komodo. They don't really say, here's the blockchain you can run on, here are all your rules. it's really more a model of every project is.
It sounds like it's more like a standard. That if you fit this standard, like ASCII or whatever it is, if you guys build it, use this template and build your chain on this, you'll be able to now interact with the Komodo family, and you will then be able to, because you've used this standardized pattern, you'll be able to now apply some of these tool sets. We'll be able to do atomic swaps for you. We'll be able to do all sorts of stuff because you fit our standardized pattern. Does that sound right?
It's true. Atomic swaps are actually, like, if you support standard Bitcoin rules, which we also do, atomic swaps can be adapted to any chain with that kind of technology, and they've even adapted atomic swaps to Ethereum. But and also other chains that are not they didn't originate in the Komodo ecosystem are starting to leverage the Komodo delayed proof of work as protection against 51% attacks. It's just that by starting with those standard patterns, and especially with the cross-chain smart contracts, which are referred to as crypto conditions and interledger protocols, especially being able to leverage those, these were reasons that we decided to go with Komodo. It provides you with a lot of kind of starting technology, a lot of great technology to begin with. We feel, why reinvent the wheel? We're going to be inventing technologies where there's a lot to do to realize the entire vision. So let's leverage the great work that's being done and that's in Komodo. And they don't constrain what you're able to do. It's exactly what you said. It's a set of existing patterns, existing technologies that are there. If you leverage them, you get to benefit from them, but they don't determine your.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's like a W3C consortium, and these are the signals that you expect. And if everybody does this, then everybody can plug in something. It's sort of like a USB port. Everybody knows what to expect, and they can plug in whatever they want. So that makes a lot of sense, and I understand why you now went with the Komodo environment. Now, question. I do know that every time that, and this may be more of a question that I should be presenting to Komodo, but I'm curious how it affects you. Obviously, it costs some money for a transaction fee to be able to do a notarization on the Bitcoin network. And I want to preface this, all the folks that are watching. The reason a notarization is basically, and Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is based on what I've learned just in the last 24 hours. So notarization appears to be that this allows the Komodo network to take all of the chains that are associated with it, that are following its pattern, and obviously Verus being there, and pass along some checksums or specific information, and it gets written into the Bitcoin network. This way, if there's ever an attack or failure, they can actually go back and do a recovery and bring the environment back together, and or be able to confirm that everything is valid and nothing's been altered. Am I on the right path there, Mike?
Absolutely. I'd add to that, it's more automatic than you've described, but everything you described is how it works. So basically, when on a regular basis, maybe every 10 blocks or so, which is like every 10 minutes, there is a notarization transaction that is created by the Komodo notaries who are elected in the Komodo ecosystem, and that is kind of a checkpoint, which includes hashes and you could think of it as checksums, as you referred to, that makes sure that up until that point, this is the exact chain that then gets notarized into the Komodo chain. And the software, our software, because it leverages the Komodo technologies, always uses that to make sure that there hasn't been an attack or a fork that the particular wallet someone's running has gotten away from. And so on a regular basis, this is validating, proving, and being used to make sure that the chain that's being run on is in fact the secure, correct chain, and that nobody has played any games with it. Then more than that, that's just talking about getting into the Komodo blockchain. But then more than that, on a regular basis, the Komodo notaries notarize the Komodo blockchain right into the real Bitcoin blockchain. And by doing that in those two steps, basically the Verus blockchain then gets this delayed proof of work benefit of being absolutely validated at certain checkpoints through Komodo into the actual Bitcoin blockchain. So if you want to rewind past any of those checkpoints and try and, create a false history on the Verus blockchain, good luck, because that's going to involve, going all the way back and doing the same thing to Komodo and doing the same thing to Bitcoin. And that assumes, even from the beginning, that you could have gotten through the 50% proof of work and 50% proof of stake technologies using Verus hash without an ASIC and without an advantage from GPUs to even, try to falsify any kind of history in the first place. So we think that, when it comes to just fundamental security in public blockchains today, this is the standard. This is state of the art. Absolutely.
All right. Now, so the first sentence in my initial part of the conversation, and then I got into the technical to explain it to everybody, is who's picking up the cost to write all this to the Bitcoin network? Because they ain't gonna do it for nothing. So who's paying the transaction fees? Is that something that comes to you?
So, well, we're actually, I would say that from Verus' perspective, we're pretty lucky because in this case, the community is picking up the tab. Verus Coin Foundation has, in order to notarize through Komodo initially covered some large number of years as they initially established the Komodo chain and ecosystem for the Bitcoin side of it. And then in order to notarize into Komodo, there's an annual amount of Komodo that's actually quite extremely reasonable. It's, somewhere on the order of a few $100s a year. And then for any chain that's being notarized into Komodo, of course, the chain itself needs transactions on the chain, these notarization transactions. And so there's a certain amount of the actual coin of that chain that needs to be available to the notaries to do that notarization. And so in the case of Verus coin notarization into Komodo, that was actually covered by the community, and we didn't pick up the tab. And even in that case, the Verus Coin Foundation didn't pick up the tab, but in future years, if needed, there are coins in the Verus Coin Foundation that can be used for that.
Okay, all right. I appreciate you explaining that to me, so that and I'm glad I got it right. I didn't have a whole lot of time. I
want to ask Ben about this when you talk to him later. I understand you're going to talk to Ben of Komodo at some point, and when you do, you might want to ask him, because the amount of money it would cost us to notarize directly into the Bitcoin blockchain is absolutely prohibitive. Like, that is a benefit that you can't create by just making a new blockchain. That's something that you can get as part of the Komodo ecosystem that, they have a monopoly on being able to do it at the prices that they covered some time ago.
Yeah. And in my research, I was able to find out, I think they were saying anywhere from 50 to 100 Bitcoins a year or something, some god-awful amount of money because of the transactions.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep. And they were saying that the advantage, though, is as more and more folks use the Komodo platform, or should I say template, that cost can then be shared with more and more people for the same price. And it doesn't cost anything more to add those additional individuals. So obviously it was a cost to them. And yes, I will ask, I will ask them and see what they have to say on that. All right. So now I have to ask you about this algo. Now, obviously, I initially wasn't. When I took a look, I said, "Oh, geez, they're making their own algorithm," and I'm not a big fan of that. But because anything can go wrong with that. But if you know what you're doing, obviously you can. Obviously new algorithms are created all the time, but. What made you go that direction? And I have to ask you, so obviously that's the first question. The second one is that what is it specifically about this algorithm that allows it to perform as good on a CPU as it currently does on a GPU? Obviously, for example, if you take the Argon 2 algorithm, its functionality interacts with the L3 cache that's built into the CPUs, and so therefore a GPU has a difficult time trying to replicate the performance that happens because it's using a specific function of the hardware of a CPU that has to then be simulated, and the performance gain is almost the same, maybe a little bit better, but it's almost the same. So tell me what you did there, and how that worked out. So why you did it and how you did it is what I'm curious about.
So first, let's go back to when we were actually making this decision, and that was a time when it was before ASICs had actually been released for Equihash. But there was suspicion that there were ASICs being used to mine Equihash. And I think it was just around the time that that Monero had validated that there were ASICs being used, for kryptonite, and the industry was really having a big challenge trying to create these ASIC resistant algorithms. But not only that, the idea of a CPU mineable algorithm that could in fact be really last and stand against GPUs for some amount of time, let alone ASICs, there just wasn't a solution for that. And I love to solve hard problems. So first thing was research. And, my thinking was kind of the starting point was to ask the question, is there the equivalent of an ASIC already in today's CPUs that we might be able to use that could boost the performance of CPUs because of the investment that Intel and AMD and whoever else is making CPUs actually puts into these? Because if we could figure out a way to leverage that, then that might have some real value. So I started doing research on various approaches people had taken, and I came across an algorithm called Haraka. It was actually Haraka v2, and Haraka v2 is a quantum secure short input hash algorithm. And what that means is there is no definition in Haraka v2 for taking like a block header and hashing the block header into a hash. Haraka v2 does some very specific things, and it's used for quantum secure signature schemes. And what it does is it takes 512 or 256 bits of information, and it produces a 256-bit hash. That's what it does. And yet it does it in a quantum secure manner, and it leverages the built-in AES cryptographic standard instructions that are built into modern day CPUs, and it is the absolute fastest, recognized as the absolute fastest short input hash algorithm on CPUs that have these instructions in the world. It is insanely fast. And so what I did is I basically took that and I made it the core of Verus hash. And I defined a hash algorithm that would use that as the core, and that would be able to take any amount of input as a long input. And so I adapted that core and that technology and defined and implemented a long input hash that can take block headers that could be useful for the first time as a cryptocurrency hash algorithm. And in fact, then coupled that, because by doing that, we then had a brand new hash algorithm leveraging CPUs. We know that the core is, academically speaking, the fastest short input hash algorithm in the world on CPUs. And now we have this long input hash algorithm, which we didn't actually make the claim that it was the fastest in the world at first. It is, we know it is now. We didn't make the claim that it was at first, but we knew that it may be the fastest in the world as a long input hash. And so we started out with that. And the way that that I designed the block header and the way that the hashing worked, I left kind of a question open of whether or not what direction I left basically two directions to go for a next level optimization that I felt we would decide when we figured out what GPUs were able to do with our current approach. And so we had people working on GPU algorithms in the community, and although they were not able to beat the algorithm as it was with its normal, kind of long input approach, it looked to me like they were getting close enough that maybe someone could come along, some really rare genius GPU programmer might come along and figure out a way to take it even further and beat CPUs. And so I decided to take the step, go one direction, and optimize the algorithm to be so fast that, in fact, now it was about a 20 to 40 times speed increase when I made that change. And I did it in a way where the community could prove, and we also explained how the community could check and prove that technique was never used on the blockchain before. And so what we did is we basically boosted the speed of the hash algorithm by many, many times. We did not use that at all. The developers didn't use it. We didn't use it, and we explained to the community how to check if anyone had used it before. We released it to the community so that everybody would have the benefit at the same time, in the same spirit of fair launch. And in fact, I ended up traveling for about a week, so I was not able to get to do my own mining on the new algorithm for about a week, but that's okay. And so after doing that, though, basically I did kind of a trick, which gave a boost in speed that makes our speed now, we're still using Hiraka v2 as a core, but in the way that I did this last step, it's the same speed as if you were using Hiraka v2 to mine with Verus hash. And so what that means is if Hiraka v2 is the fastest short input hash algorithm on CPUs in the world, which it is, then we are the fastest cryptocurrency mining hash algorithm period in the world on CPUs, and we know that. And since we've done that, the closest a GPU has been able to get so far is if you take kind of a top-of-the-line GPU, a 1080 Ti, the optimized algorithm that isn't finished in a good miner yet, it's getting under 140 megahashes per second. And a fast CPU, it's not that unusual for a fast CPU to get 400 to 500 megahashes per second. And some of them are getting over a gigahash per second on some of the fastest CPUs. And so if you look at, and then the other thing is, if once you put a GPU on risers, because the speed on a CPU is so fast, and the loop optimizes as you mentioned, the L2 cache, I squeezed every cycle I could out of that. And because of all of that, just the time it takes to get to the GPU and back on a riser drops that, under 140 megahash down into the high 20s. And so now I'm of the opinion, like right now, I have cold 1080 Ti's that I used to use for mining other coins, and I just haven't had time since working on this to mine other coins at all. And so I don't use it for mining Verus because there isn't a finished miner, but even if someone finished the miner, which might be me at some point, because I'm not sure that it economically makes the most sense, but if someone finishes the miner with the optimized GPU algorithm that's there right now, it's not yet competitive with CPUs.
All right.
So
all right.
I think the best we could get, and then what I'd hope for, is that at some point, GPUs could become fast enough on this algorithm to be able to mine side by side with CPUs. That would be great. More decentralization.
What type of processors are you talking about? Are you looking at Threadrippers? Or are you looking at? Obviously, you're not talking, fives and sevens.
Yeah, it's on our Discord. We've got a hash rate channel, and I'm not an expert on all the CPUs and exactly what their rate is. My CPUs aren't getting the top rates. I can just tell you that. But what I've seen, I think I'm 99.9% sure that it was a Threadripper that got that over 1 gigahash hash rate. That's we have on our Discord a hash rate channel where people just post what they've gotten, and it was something over a gigahash per second. It was crazy. Yeah, just the idea that a CPU can even do that many hash operations in 1 second, you're talking about absolutely phenomenal throughput rate.
Right. But what it's doing is it's taking advantage of a circuitry that's inside of the processor that was built just to do the hash. And so basically it is an ASIC inside of the processor, a small piece of it. So there's only the one of them, but it's in there and it's actually performing. So
by the way,
so I had to stop the video at that point because we're about an hour into it, and there's a heck of a lot more information to come, and a lot more technical and details and all the good stuff. Michael's been able to really expand upon every question that I presented to him, and we appreciated that. So you're going to want to click on part 2 of the Verus coin and continue to watch at your leisure and when it works for you. But we appreciate you watching, and we hope you stick around for part 2. Thanks.